You're listening to the WBT Podcast with Micah Lodge. Listen to all of our podcasts at www.wbtpod.com. Stay informed. Let's get started.
So where in the world did the whole week go? All of a sudden it's Friday. I can't believe it. Sometimes weeks go by very slowly, and other weeks they go by like a zooming car. So I woke up this morning and it was 34 degrees. I saw the frost on some of my sheds out in the back of the house, and I thought, well, no wonder I was so cold last night, because it was really freezing cold. But the dogs love it. I know my dogs love it. They go outside, they get this fresh air, and then they come in and they run through the house like crazy pups. So the cold air does something for the dogs that create new dogs. All of a sudden, from being old dogs, they become new dogs in just a matter of a few minutes. I need to let them out more, I guess. So in the past week, I've done several podcasts. We've talked about divorce tax. We've talked about the Congress passing the new tax reform legislation and how badly the Senate will probably screw it up. We talked about a lot of different things that affect taxes. And the more that we go through, the closer we get to tax season, time for you to file. I'm trying to find as many tax articles that I can, just so that you know what the current tax law is, and also about what will happen if this legislation goes through. So please stay tuned on that, because I'm going to try and find as much data as I can to pass on to you. This tax situation of the United States is really grim, and too much is being taken out and too much control is placed over us. One other item that I want to talk to you about again, and that is the California gas tax repeal. They're trying to repeal that. So if you will go to my website, and if you want to volunteer some time to go out and get signatures and everything else that they need, go to my website at www.wbtpod.com and click on the tab at the very right-hand corner that says Get Involved. And it will tell you how to get involved and how to participate in this. Because, listen, they just passed a 12-cent increase in taxes on gasoline, 20 cents on diesel fuel. However, none of that money will probably ever be used on infrastructure or the roads that need to be done. I mean, if you drive through Los Angeles, in 1 year, this is how bad the roads are there. In 1 year, and not even just in 1 year, but just in a matter of 3 months, I popped 4 of my car's tires on potholes. And so how they fix it? They just go out there and put some more asphalt in, and pretty soon it's eaten away again and more tires are ruined. But nothing ever really truly gets fixed in Los Angeles, because none of that gas tax money is being used to fix the problem of infrastructure and roads. And in fact, the state legislature has already begun stealing from that fund to pay for other things. Don't believe that they say that they're not, because they are. They were in an assembly meeting the other day, a conference meeting, and they were already taking money out of there to put someplace else. That's how corrupt that state is. So, listen, they're trying to repeal it there in California. So get involved. Go to my website, www.wbtpod.com, and click on Get Involved. and find out a way that, if you haven't signed the petition, sign it now. If you're in California, sign it now by going to my website. Let's get that thing out of there. Let's help California to once again take control of their politicians. Because the politicians have gone way out of line. In fact, by the way, Governor Brown just gave himself another raise. So, you've got these money-grubbing liberal politicians in the state of California that keep robbing the state to pay for their own little programs and to line their pockets. So, sign the petition and let's get rid of this tax increase in California. It's vital. So I want to talk just a little bit about communications and how we communicate. Stanford Business School, Matt Abrams has written a really good article on the communication process of how we communicate with other people. And his whole focus on this was, when we get into situations where people are trying to attack you, or if you are in a situation where people are questioning you really heavily, and how to handle it. And I know that, like right now, if you are on Facebook or Twitter or any place else, and if you make a comment and somebody doesn't agree with you, they attack you viciously. I know, I've had it done to me. So we need to think about how we respond to bad attacks or bad verbal attacks or written attacks or anything else. So he's given some situations that will help you. Excuse me. It's cold this morning. When you see frost on the top of your roof, you know it's cold. And it affects my voice and my lungs when it gets too cold. But anyway, so he gives these really good examples on how to communicate better. So here are some of his most essential points, and we're going to do it in brief because we can't go into detail. 1, get over yourself. I know that's hard for me too. It's probably hard for you to get over yourself. So he says one of the best ways to beat nerves, to stop thinking about your performance when you're trying to defend yourself, and start thinking about what other people need from you. In other words, what is the good response to communicate what your point of views are? Rather than striving for greatness, challenge yourself to just accomplish the task at hand. Answer the question. Provide the feedback. Introduce your information or your data, or even a colleague if you need to introduce somebody. By reducing the pressure you can on yourself, you can increase the likelihood of doing well. Simply put, setting greatness as your goal gets in the way of you ever getting there. Which is very, very true. How many times have you been in Facebook and people trying to prove their point, instead of making an argument with facts and data, they quote these outlandish responses. We don't want to be that way. If you're going to make an argument, or if you're going to try to show your point of view, make sure you've got the data at hand. Don't use bloggers' data. Don't use media data. Find a source. Find a source that you can use to prove your point. And make sure that it's independent. But anyway, get over yourself, and it's not about you. The argument's not about you. And they're going to call you names, and they're going to point fingers at you, and they're going to try to make an argument. But most of the time, their argument is worthless because they have no data to back it up. And they're so full of themselves that you don't want to become one of those persons that is full of yourself too. So get over yourself when you're trying to make points, and when you're trying to respond to nervous type situations, or sticky situations. Then he says, rethink the situation. How we understand the stressful situation greatly impacts how it impacts us. You'll be better at off-the-cuff speaking if you don't view it as a high-stakes exam or scary cross-examination. You need to see the spontaneous speaking situation as an opportunity rather than a challenge or threat, notes Abrams. For example, when I coach executives, he says, on Q&A after their presentations, they often see it as an adversarial experience. Them versus the media or investors or whoever it may be. Abrams says he works with the senior leaders to change their perception. A Q&A session is actually an opportunity. It's an opportunity to clarify. It's an opportunity to understand. It's an opportunity for dialogue and engagement. I think that is such an essential point of when we are at these situations where we have to answer questions. We need to think, instead of looking at it adversarially, we really need to look at the positives of our words and our remarks. And then he also says, always have structure. Just because a speech was totally unplanned doesn't mean it should be totally unstructured. Of course, you won't have time to lay out a detailed 16-point roadmap for your thoughts, but in his article, Abrams suggests a few simple structures that can work when you're asked to share your thoughts on the fly. And it's asked of us a lot of times, especially if you are in business or if you're at a meeting or something when people ask your opinion. So here's part of his structure. Problem, solution, benefit. Problem, solution, benefit. You start by addressing what the issue is or the problem. You then talk about a way of solving it. And finally, you speak to the benefits of following through on your plan. The structure is very persuasive and effective. Then he says, what? Question mark. So what? Question mark. Now what? Question mark. You start by talking about you start by talking about it is your feedback or your response. Then you discuss why it's important to the recipients. And finally, you explain what the next steps are, how the recipient can apply the feedback or answer. He says that the reality is that when you are in a spontaneous speaking situation, you have to do two things simultaneously. You have to figure out what to say and how to say it. These structures help you present your message, he insists. So, I thought those were some very good advice because I know that sometimes when I'm in a situation, I often feel like when people are asking or they're throwing questions at me, excuse me, that it is adversarial. That they're trying to trick you up, they're trying to stump you, they're trying to get at you. But I think we have to hear the question and then come up with our problem solving and benefit. Problem solving benefit. In other words, addressing the problem, looking at the solution and what the benefit is. And then ask the questions, what? So what? How? Now what? So his points are very well taken. And I think if we apply them, you and I apply them, and how we respond to questions, forget about thinking it's adversarial. Think about the result of your answer. Because that is how you win people over. That is how you get things done. People will throw stuff at you. They'll throw all of this documentation and everything. Question the documentation. Because some of this documentation, they just use bits and pieces of data. They don't look at the overall scope of the data. But so they just take bits and pieces that they hope are going to win their discussion point. But in most times, that data is screwed up. It's corrupted. I am so sorry. This cold air is getting to me. So let's focus on how we communicate and how we communicate better on a daily basis with people who are throwing questions at us, trying to trick us up, trying to fool around with us. And if you really think about how to respond, it makes the other side look really weak. But if you've thought the answer through, you can accomplish so much. So I encourage each and every single one of us, let's go out there and really focus on how we communicate and how we answer our questions. Solid words can accomplish a lot. Thought out words can accomplish a lot. But if you're going to follow a political theme, or if you're going to follow a spin that people are giving you, you're just spinning. You have no new information to provide to the conversation or to the discussion. And you're certainly not going to answer a question with a spin. So this is Mike Lodge. Let's learn how to better communicate every single day. Because I tell you, it's vital, vital, vital in how we operate and how we respond to people. We can get so much done with really good, thought-out communication. This is Mike Lodge, and I hope that you will have a good weekend. I'll talk with you again on Saturday and again on Sunday. Stay tuned on Sunday, because that's when I take off my business and accountant's hat and I put on my clergy hat. I love Sundays. So I will talk with you soon. This is Michael Lodge.
This is brought to you by Lodge & Co., a business and tax advisory firm where your success is our goal. Call us today toll-free at 888-681-1518 or visit us at www.lodge-co.com and learn more about what we can do for you. Lodge & Co., your source for sound business and tax services.
Thank you for listening to the WBT with Michael Lodge. Join us again tomorrow as we explore more about business and taxes. Follow us on iHeartRadio and go to our podcast website at www.wbtpod.com and listen to all of our podcasts and read our blogs.